This is Distant Replay.
Welcome into a true crime edition of the Distant Replay podcast. Today, we're going to tell you the story about a former NBA star, played alongside Michael Jordan, played with the Bulls, a number of NBA teams, but he abruptly retired from the NBA, bought a catamaran, wanted to enjoy retirement, but eventually disappeared. Today, it's the story of Bison Dele, a.k.a. Brian Williams. We'll tell you that story today on the podcast. I am Ben George. He is Mike Noto. And I remember Brian Williams pretty clearly. He had a pretty solid NBA career. Obviously, anybody alongside Jordan during that time, you'd remember because they were always on TV and winning a lot of ball games. But I don't remember this portion of his life and the name change.
Yeah, look, Ben, when we're talking about Bison Dele, I was well aware of his college career. I was well aware of his professional basketball career. But where things got fuzzy for me was I wasn't aware of his sudden retirement, the reasons for that retirement, and then kind of how his life would go afterwards up to and including his disappearance.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how this story plays out and hearing how it goes because I feel like this is a pretty big deal anytime anybody disappears, but somebody of this magnitude, this level, an NBA star that made millions of dollars on the court, it's kind of very interesting to see and hear about. So let's get rolling. Let's go with his background first.
Yeah, so Bison Dele was born Brian Williams. So you may know the name Brian Williams, but so we're going to call him Bison throughout the rest of this episode. He changed his name to Bison Dele in 1998. He did so because to honor the Native American heritage he had with the name Bison and the African heritage that he had in his family for the last name Dele. So we're going to, from now here on, we'll call him Bison Dele. But Brian Williams went to Maryland to play college basketball, then transferred to Arizona. So if you know him from college basketball, you probably know him from Arizona. I know I remember him from back in the day playing at the University of Arizona for Lute Olson. He was the number 10 overall pick by the Magic, in the 91 NBA draft. He spent time, Ben, with the Magic, the Nuggets, the Clippers, the Bulls, and the Pistons. So from a statistical standpoint, his best season was in 95-96 with the Clippers. Basically what happened was the Clippers back in those days, they didn't want to pay anyone. So a guy has a good season, Clippers aren't willing to pay him, and no one else is willing to pay him either the money he thinks he's worth. So he actually signs with the Bulls, probably best known for that time with the Bulls, played the last 9 games of the regular season and then into the playoffs on that title run. This would be like the first, I know you remember this, Ben, this was the first Utah Jazz finals.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So he played a big role on that team. Then after that offseason, he parlayed that good playoff run into a $36 million contract with the Pistons.
Nice.
Yeah, big payday for Bison. He plays 97-98 with the Pistons, plays the 98-99 season with the Pistons, and then he abruptly retires. Okay, we've done a couple of these episodes where the people involved just like kind of abruptly retire. And it's one of the big parts of his story. Like people don't understand, like, well, you walked away from a $36 million contract. You only played, 2 of the seasons of a $36 million contract.
Yeah.
Took a lot of people by surprise, but not the people who knew him. Okay. There was more to him. By all accounts, there was more to him than just being a basketball player. He abruptly retired, buys a catamaran boat, names it the Hakuna Matata, and goes to the South Pacific to enjoy his retirement.
Yeah, you name a boat like that. I mean, you should be in pretty good headspace, it seems like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Hakuna Matata, right?
Yeah.
It means no worries. So, so he's headed to the South Pacific for retirement on the Hakuna Matata, sort of just living it up. During the end of his NBA career and even into retirement, he was in touch a lot with a woman named Serena Carlin. All right. He met her in LA when he played for the Clippers. They knew each other for like 5 years, kind of on and off kind of thing where they keep in touch and became good friends. Right after he retired, or not even after he retired, but in a couple of years after his retirement, you had the 9/11 terrorist attacks happen. All right. And I think that caused a lot of people back in the day to sort of reevaluate things. Right.
Definitely. Yeah.
And not take things for granted. Right. And Bison and Serena sort of fell in this category. After the 9/11 attacks, Bison is in the South Pacific And he convinces Serena to join him in the South Pacific. Like, hey, why don't you just come here for a couple of weeks, sort of enjoy some time here. And it's beautiful here. I'm hanging out on the beach. Come spend some time with me. She was initially hesitant, but she was working in New York City in real estate at the time. And things were slow, obviously, right after 9/11. So she said, you know what? I think I might I like this guy. He's a good guy. He called me to check in with me and how I was, after what happened in New York, because he knew I was living there. I'll go spend a couple of weeks with him. It's a nice way to get away. Okay. This was good timing for them to sort of meet up like this, because they were both ready at this point in their life. From all accounts, they're both ready to kind of prioritize a relationship.
Yeah.
Right. So Serena and Bison reunite in mid-October of 2001. It was only supposed to be a 2-week visit, like I mentioned, but it becomes a lot longer than that. They're having a great time vacationing. Their relationship's going to the next level. They're spending quality time. Okay. Maybe before, with both their busy schedules, they didn't get to know each other as well as they are, during this period of time. In January of 2002, so remember, they met up in October. So now we're a little more than 2 months after they meet up. In January of 2002, they're in New Zealand at this time.
Okay.
Bison has a brother whose given name is Kevin Williams, but who changed his name to Miles DeBoard. Okay. His brother Miles shows up completely unannounced out of the blue to New Zealand. It's unclear to me. I couldn't find information on how he found out where his brother was. I'm assuming it was like a family member might have told him. But normally you think all right, my brother's coming to visit me. Who cares if it's out of the blue? I haven't seen him in a while. Hey, we're having a good time here in New Zealand. More the merrier, right?
Typically, yeah.
Yeah, well, Bison and Miles, they hadn't seen, the problem with this is Bison and Miles hadn't seen each other in years, and they were really, really at odds with each other when they did see each other. And by all accounts, the root of the issues between the two was Miles was number one. Miles was the older brother, and he was kind of jealous of Bison's success. I think it maybe was as a result of Miles is a big guy, just like Bison is, and Bison did something with that size and sort of intelligence that he had and became a very accomplished NBA player, very well-respected guy, and maybe Miles didn't, sort of natural kind of sibling rivalry kind of stuff. That was a factor. And also over the years, Bison had given Miles money to, start the next get rich quick scheme that Miles wanted to get involved in, or to help prop him up when times were tough. And Bison lost money in a couple of those business deals, lost money just giving away money to him and also members of his family. And the way Miles sort of puts it at is, hey, look, I wanted to come to New Zealand. I want to patch things up. And I want to move forward and have a relationship with my brother, right? That's kind of the story he portrays to them when he comes.
Yeah.
But in reality, when Miles shows up there, he's broke and unemployed.
He had a different motive.
Yeah. It seemed like he had different motives right from word one. But look, make no mistake about it. He comes right in the middle of what they got going on. They got this good relationship going on. They're taking things to the next level. He inserts himself right in there and starts living with them.
Jeez.
All right. So at this time, you have Serena talking to her friends and family, and he's back home, and she's telling them look, ever since Miles came, Bison's a different guy. They're arguing with each other. All they do is fight with each other, to the point where Serena said, hey, look, I'm going to leave the boat for a couple days so you guys can kind of figure out what your issues are.
Yeah.
This leads to in May of 2002. So we're all the way in May. So obviously Miles is not worried about wearing out as well.
Yeah, and
he got there in January.
They've been longer with Miles there than they were just the two of them.
Exactly,
point,
right.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. Actually, that's perfect. In May, Miles takes their boat to French Polynesia, which is a group of islands in the South Pacific. Tahiti is the most populated area there. Just to give you an idea of what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Serena and Bison stay behind as a little bit of a break. You know what I mean? Hey, look, let's just take a little bit of a break from each other. Let's sort of recharge. Let's get away from Miles for a little bit. That's in May. In June 24th of 2002, they all reunite in French Polynesia, okay, on a place called Moorea Island. From Moorea Island, Bison and Serena plan to go on and take a boat to Hawaii. So from where they are in French Polynesia to Hawaii is about a 6-week trip by boat.
Oof.
Yeah. wild, right? And at first, Miles is like, you know what, man? You know what? I have my own plans. No problem. I'm going to meet my girlfriend's going to come here to French Polynesia. We're going to hang out here, have fun on your trip and, have fun in Hawaii. That's the initial sort of reaction when Miles is told that they're going to go on this 6-week trip.
Okay. I'm guessing that's not how it played out. It's
not how it played out because, at the last minute, Miles decides to join Bison and Serena and go to Hawaii with them. So we're talking like literally we're there's some planning that goes involved with taking a 6-week trip. Like the last minute, he throws his bag on board. It's like, actually, psych, I'm going to come.
Jeez.
So on July 6, 2002, the boat leaving French Polynesia, Moorea Island, has Miles, Serena, Bison, and the captain of their boat. They need a captain to sort of be with them during this voyage here. For just the first leg of their trip is 200 miles.
Yeah.
Never mind all the way to Hawaii. The captain of their boat, a French guy named Bertrand Saldo, is the captain of their boat. So these four start out on their trip. That's on July 6, 2002. On July 7th, they have a satellite phone on the boat. Okay, because remember, they're literally in the middle of bodies of water here. On July 7th, Serena calls Bison's financial manager, Kevin Porter, on the satellite phone, and they're just talking about normal stuff, how things are going. She's telling Kevin, hey, look, we're having a lot of fun. Serena goes to put Bison on the phone, and the call drops. Not uncommon on a satellite phone in the middle of the ocean for a satellite phone to drop. So the financial manager doesn't think anything of it.
Right.
When we look back now, though, that turned out to be the last time Bison or Serena spoke to anyone. Okay. 8 weeks pass before people figure out like, hey, something might be going on here where they may be in trouble. 8 weeks. Now you might think that sounds weird.
I mean, it's like, a 6-week trip, though. You would think like, okay, it's been 6 weeks. That's the length of time this should take. And you tack on 2 more weeks. Yeah, something seems off there.
Yeah, and we're talking about and they had a satellite phone as well. It's not like they had no way to communicate with the outside world here. Serena has like birthday calls she misses. What I mean by that is like her mom's birthday was on July 12th. She didn't call her. But again, so we have all these little kind of things that happen that are weird for Serena and Bison not to do. But people are like, well, they're in the middle of the ocean on a boat, Mm-hmm. But at the 8-week mark, there's sort of red flags raised. In August now, Serena's mother like starts getting really worried. All right. Like, hey,
yeah, something's wrong.
What's going on? Calls Kevin Porter, the financial manager. And Kevin Porter basically says, look, this is normal. It may not be normal for Serena, but you can go for months at a time without hearing from Bison. Don't worry. Everything's fine. Mid-August, still no word. The mother calls Porter again. So at this point, Porter says, you know what? I have access to his financials. I'll go in and see if anything suspicious is going on. Okay. He contacts Bison's bank to try to figure out where they are. Hey, did they make a purchase here, a purchase there? The bank tells him there was some suspicious activity. Bison never wrote checks. He had gone like 5 years in between writing a physical check. Okay.
Yeah.
The banker tells Kevin Porter that there was a suspicious check for $150,000 made out to a gold dealer in Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah, that's odd.
So as it turns out, they contact the gold dealer and they come to the conclusion that someone's trying to impersonate Bison to buy $150,000 worth of gold. All right. He tells the gold dealer, like, look, no one's seen Bison or his girlfriend Serena in 10 weeks. Right. I need to figure out what's going on. The gold dealer, there's a phone number written on the check, the $150,000 check. The gold dealer gives Porter the phone number that was written on the check, and it's to a Florida area code. Porter calls the number, hoping that it's Bison, right? At that point, he has no idea what's going on.
Yeah, maybe he's returned back to the States and just didn't tell anybody.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, look, it's weird he wrote a check, but maybe it's him. Try and take a guess who's on the other line of that call.
Miles?
It's Miles. It's an answering machine. So Kevin Porter gets an answering machine, recognizes the voice as Miles right away. Okay. He immediately thinks, man, that scumbag is stealing from his brother, right? Yeah. That's his initial reaction. Is Porter thinks like, wow, man, this guy has some stone stealing from his brother. Now, at this point, Miles and Porter end up connecting on the phone. He leaves Miles a message. Miles calls him back. Miles sort of questions him on what's going on. Miles never asks Porter how he got his number. All right. So Porter calls the gold dealer back to figure out what to do next. So Porter didn't tip his hand. He just sort of talked to Miles like, hey, have you heard from Bison or Serena? Do you know where they are? And Miles is like, no, when I left them, they were fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So now they call the gold dealer back to figure out what to do next. They get advice from an FBI agent to file a missing persons report, because until they do, they can't really prove that that $150,000 check, wasn't written by Bison rather.
Yeah.
So they file the missing persons reports for Serena and for Bison. Then they contact the Phoenix Police Department about the situation. At this point, now we're in a point in this where the $150,000 check is cleared, but the dealer hasn't sent the coins out yet. So obviously, Miles is waiting for them to be sent to Florida, right?
Yeah.
So Miles gets like really restless about this. Like the coins haven't showed up. So he makes arrangements to go pick them up in person from the gold dealer in Phoenix. Okay. So we know we're going to have Miles come to Phoenix to pick up the gold. On September 5th, 2002, they set up a sting operation and catch Miles in the act committing forgery, signing Bison's name for the gold.
Boom.
Police swarm him and arrest him. This is where the story gets infuriating.
Okay.
He's brought in for questioning, 5 hours of questioning. Miles says during the questioning that he makes up this whole story about how Bison sent him to get the gold because Bison and Serena are in trouble and Miles needs the money to bring back to French Polynesia for ransom. Okay? To pay a ransom. And on top of that, Miles says, hey, Kevin Porter will back up what I'm saying. Like if you contact him, he'll back up what I'm saying. Well, what Miles doesn't know is that Porter is in Phoenix. Porter is based in Detroit, but he flew to Phoenix to be there for everything. The cops let Porter in to talk to Miles to see what he can get out of him. Okay, can you see if you can get any information out of him? Because he's sticking to the story that Bison sent him here to get the gold. Miles tells Porter to help him get out of there because Serena and Bison are in trouble and he needs to get back to help them. So he's sticking to his story. He says they were alive when he left them, but he's not sure about now because he needs to get back. Okay, this is the infuriating part. After 7 hours of questioning, he's released. The DA said to let him go because there's nothing to keep him on, even though he committed identity fraud to obtain $150,000 in gold, and he hasn't given any definitive answers on where Bison and Serena are.
So is it just a case of where, because the charges are still serious, right? I mean, forgery, 150,000. Is it just because it's a normal let him out on bond type situation? Because it's it's a big deal. But
No, they didn't let him out on bond. They let him go.
They just let him go altogether.
They let him go.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
The DA said there's nothing to keep him on.
How can they say that?
I don't know. That's a very confusing part of the story to me. A huge mistake, in my opinion, especially since we have missing persons reports against for Bison and Serena at this time. We know the last time anyone spoke to Bison or Serena, the 4 people were on the boat: the captain, Bison and Serena, and Miles. And Miles is the only one anyone can get in touch with. So even from that perspective, why are we letting him go?
Right. But his story is they're in trouble and he's going to get the ransom money for him.
That's his story. He's sticking to it.
Okay.
Kevin Porter then follows Miles to the airport. Miles is on his way to fly back to California. He follows Miles to the airport and they have a confrontation. Miles randomly tells him he has to go to Mexico because California and Arizona have the death penalty.
Whoa.
And that's the same reaction Kevin Porter had. And he's like, why are you worried about the death penalty? Where are Bison and Serena? Miles doesn't answer his question, gets on the plane to San Jose. Okay. That same day, Miles is talking to Porter and another one of Bison's friends. They're in communication the entire time. He's still sticking to the ransom money story. When Miles gets back to San Jose, he tells his girlfriend he's in a lot of trouble and he needs to leave town, and it involves Bison and Serena. No details given at this point. The girlfriend tries to get him to come clean to Serena's parents and to his parents, but he says he can't do that until he's in Mexico. Right. So he's saying, I know what happened to them, but I can't let anyone know till we're in Mexico. So they start driving from San Jose to the Mexican border, the girlfriend and Miles.
Yeah.
During that ride, Miles tells his girlfriend the version of events that happened.
Okay.
Are you ready for Miles's version of events that happened on the boat?
Okay. I'm guessing it's not a ransom story.
It's not a ransom story.
Okay.
He says Bison and Miles got into one of their physical altercations.
Okay.
It became very physical. Serena tried to intervene. Bison threw her off, and she hit her head the wrong way on the boat and died. Then the captain said, hey, look, we need to notify the authorities, right? Like, this is crazy. You know, she's dead. That caused Bison to grab a wrench, strike him with it twice, and kill him. He's saying Bison killed the captain with a wrench, right?
God.
Then finally, you know, Miles said that Bison wanted him to cover everything up. Miles said he couldn't live with that. So he went into his bag that he had on board the boat, grabbed his gun, confronted Bison, and shot him in the chest and killed him.
So Miles killed Serena. Accidentally.
Bison.
Oh, he's saying Bison killed. Okay, Bison threw off. So Bison did that. But then Miles, after all this, didn't want to cover it up, so decided he would commit murder too.
He did, yeah. So that's his
cleanup. Okay.
That's his version of events. So now everyone's dead. Miles said, except Miles, he said he threw everyone overboard. That's how that car ride goes. The girlfriend drops Miles off in Mexico and drives back to Northern California.
Yeah, I'd be like,
the next day, she tells the police what Miles told her, right? So now the FBI gets involved and we have a full-blown manhunt for Miles. The FBI goes to French Polynesia to investigate on September 13th. They find the missing catamaran. The boat has been repainted and renamed.
Wow.
All right. Meanwhile, during all this time, Porter and another one of Bison's friends have been still keeping in touch with Miles while he's on the run. He's still sticking to his story. Finally, they convince Miles to meet one of Bison's friends in Tijuana. In the meantime, though, before they can meet Miles, Miles's mother, Bison's also obviously Bison's mother, tips Miles off that Bison's friends are working with the FBI.
Wait, where did his mom come into all this?
His mom, so you got to remember, the FBI is in contact with his mom because Bison's missing, you know?
Yeah.
So the FBI is in contact with his mom. The FBI lets the mom know of the plan to meet Miles in Tijuana. And then the mother tells Miles, hey, look, just to give you a heads up, the FBI is going to be there when you meet Bison's friend in Tijuana.
Golly.
So the plan is foiled at this point.
Yeah.
And they're all like, why did you tip him off? Why did you do this? We want to know what happened to Bison. And her basic response was, in general, we really don't know what happened on that boat. So we have to treat Miles as we would treat Bison. Just like a really odd response. Okay. That meeting was supposed to happen on September 13th. On September 14th, Miles is taken to a Mexican hospital because he overdosed on insulin. Despite there being an FBI warrant for him and the fact that he's 6'8", they don't identify him in the Mexican hospital as being Miles, right? He doesn't have ID on him, so they don't know who he is. He gets transferred to a hospital in California, and they figure out who he is by his fingerprints. But by this time, he's in a coma, and he can't communicate. But they figured out through the fingerprints again that this was Miles, who overdosed on insulin and who got shipped back to the U.S. here.
Wow.
Okay. He's in a coma, terrible situation, because the parents have to make the decision on the 27th of September to remove him from life support. Miles dies, and with Miles dies any chance we have to get any answers on what definitively happened to Serena, Bison, and the captain. 4 people are dead. There's no answers. Miles never admitted to it. No bodies were ever found. The FBI was not able to corroborate Miles' story of the way things went down based on the evidence. Okay, they searched the boat. They did their examination of the boat. The mother says it wasn't Miles. but the FBI says they can't prove there was ever anyone else on that boat other than Miles and the 3 other people.
And the only person they found was Miles after the fact.
Exactly. So it's a crazy story that does not have a conclusion. Obviously, if you look at everything objectively, I think we can say Miles played a very significant role, if played the only role, in the death of Bison, Serena, and the captain. How it went down, we'll never know. Bison and Miles were memorialized together in October of 2002, and Serena in a separate ceremony by her family also in October. Just a terrible story, and even more so that the families are never going to have closure on what happened.
Yeah.
I think like I said, most reasonable people can conclude that it was Miles, but it's still left open-ended.
I mean, I think you can take his story and it's some version of that story, right? I think that seems most logical. Whether or not Bison was doing the things that he described or it was Miles himself that was doing those things, I don't know. But I mean, it seems like it would make sense that they maybe got into a fight. It escalated. Now, whether or not Serena hit her head the wrong way or whatever, but it seems like they got in a fight, things went wrong, and that's how it all ended. Either way, it's just a tragic story.
Tragic story, and it's just tough to take anything Miles says at face value, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's tough to believe any version of the events he told, but the bottom line is, you know, we have the 4 people that were on that boat are dead, and we're never going to have any answers, and it's an absolute shame.
And it seems like the worst part is these 2 were kind of, you know, in a really good place in life too.
By all accounts, very good people, loved by all their friends and family, and just tragic story.
Yeah. Well, that's the story of Bison Dele. You probably might know him better as Brian Williams, is his name, back when he played in the NBA and had a really good career. But man, what a tragic finish to that story. I mean, I remember a little bit about that story, but not all the details. So thanks for filling us in, Mike. If you want to learn more about this story and do a little more research and read a few more of the details, a couple of places you can find it. The show Disappeared on the ID channel. They did an entire episode on which was very good. There's a number of different articles on the internet, and also there are some other YouTube videos out there that discuss that as well. So a number of different resources if you want to continue learning more about this case. And if you have an idea, we've taken some recommendations, some requests from people, especially on YouTube. We've had a lot of new subscribers, so we thank you for joining us there. If you have anything on your mind or know of a story or want to know more details about a case or something that's happened to a sports star at some point, let us know. We got a list of shows we plan on doing, but any other shows you have, we'd appreciate it. Right, Mike?
Absolutely. And I can't thank everyone enough. Please make sure to rate on your podcast platform, like and subscribe on YouTube. It helps us a lot. And it's been great, the sort of the response we've been getting to these and the other videos we've been doing. Keep the suggestions coming for the true crime episodes. I have a running list. I take every suggestion, put it in a list, and look into it. So don't think you're going to be ignored if you suggest something, and just drop it in the comments. Yeah,
appreciate that, Mike. Appreciate all the hard work you put into it. Definitely interesting going back through this case. That'll do it for us here on Distant Replay, our True Crime Sports Edition. We will have another episode soon. Make sure you hit subscribe wherever it is you listen, and we'll be back again soon. Thanks.